Namaskar, good afternoon and welcome everyone to this episode of DCI webinar. We are already into the fourth of the series, and this is the very first from the Fraternity of Periodontology. I extend a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of President, Dental Council of India. I would begin with my humble pranam and sincerest regards and respect for my teacher and mentor, President, Dental Council of India, Professor Dr. Majumdar sir. This massive platform is here today because of his vision, his foresight, and his constant encouragement for everyone associated with this platform. My heartfelt congratulations and gratitude to all those involved in transforming sir's dreams into reality. That includes all the members of the Dental Council, our able and dynamic secretary, Professor Dr. Shobhoshathi Shaha, and his super efficient back office and technical team, including Mukesh ji, Sunil ji, Kushal ji, and others, who are working tirelessly to make our work seamless. I shall be failing in my duty if I do not mention Professor Dr. Virendra Goel sir, who has been helping and supporting us constantly from day one. As we are all aware that this webinar is absolutely free for all the participants. A quick read of the instructions for all the attendees. The attendees, as you all know, will have to register for each webinar separately. And at the time of registration, it is mandatory that complete and proper details be filled up, since the same will be captured for generating certificates and CDE points. The certificates will be delivered directly to your mailbox. So it is very important that your email IDs be filled up properly and correctly. No request for any change or modification shall be entertained because it is not possible for us to change anything later on. An e-certificate of attendance will be sent to all attendees, including undergraduate students, international attendees, and non-dentists on their registered email within 3 days. And these will be sent only to those who have attended the entire session of the webinar uninterrupted. The attendees are also advised to check their spam or junk mail. Now, the CDE points will be awarded to the dentists registered with the state dental councils or tribunals of India. In case of any query or issue, please drop email at the email ID that you can see mentioned on the screen. Now, the top 5 dental colleges in terms of participation of their students and faculties in the third webinar aired on 19th July have been Sardar Patel Postgraduate Institute of Dental and Medical Sciences, Lucknow, Manipal College of Dental Sciences, Mangalore, RVS Dental College, Coimbatore, Guru Nanak Institute of Dental Sciences and Research, Kolkata, and Sri Ramachandra Dental College and Hospital, Chennai. We do hope that this participation will go a long way in enhancing the education of all involved and hope for greater participation from all other colleges in the weeks to come. We are into this pandemic for months together now, and the first 3 webinars have dealt exclusively with this. Inspirational speakers have spoken to us regarding how to deal with this situation, how to keep our patients, their attendants, our staffs, ourselves, and our families safe. And most importantly, how to keep our hopes and positivity alive during these times of stress. So with that hope and positivity in our heart, it has been a conscious decision today to steer beyond COVID-19. And to lead us into that journey today, we have as our speaker none other than Professor Dr. Balaji Manohar, Principal, Professor and Head, Department of Periodontology, Kalinga Institute of Dental Sciences, Bhubaneswar. Welcome, sir, and over to Dr. Balaji Manohar for today's presentation on periodontics for the general practice. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaskar. Good evening to my respected teachers, seniors, colleagues, and dear students. First of all, I would like to place on record my heartfelt thanks to the President of Dental Council of India, Dr. Divyendu Majumdar sir, the Secretary of the Dental Council, Dr. Sabyasachi Saha sir, all the members of the Dental Council of India, the webinar team for initiating this webinar series, and also to give me an opportunity to address you all this evening. Thank you once again. With about 310 dental colleges, 25,000 graduates, and over 800 postgraduates in periodontology passing out every year, periodontics still seems to be a specialty which has not gained popularity amongst the dentists as well as the population. Probably because the treatment which is given after the periodontal therapy is not that visible and evident as it might be when there is an endodontic treatment done, a prosthodontic treatment done, or may it be an orthodontic treatment. From a general dentist point of view, what is the lifeline of dentistry? It still revolves around good periodontal support on which good general health and the dental health depends. Implant has slowly and steadily taken the center stage of dentistry. Even this year, when I asked the newly joined postgraduates in my department why they joined periodontics, they answered that they want to learn implantology. But implant is not the treatment for periodontitis. Treatment of periodontitis still begins with educating and motivating the patient regarding the oral hygiene maintenance, oral prophylaxis to be done, and followed up by surgery if there might be any need. Keeping this in mind, I thought of taking this opportunity to specifically address the practitioners, fresh and young graduates, and of course the young minds who are still in college on the verge of entering the competitive world of dentistry regarding looking at some common periodontal problems which can be addressed by them in their dental practice, which can improve their practice as well as improve the patient's condition. Now in 2017, I came across a fact on Twitter which said 4.8 billion people own mobile phones, whereas only 4.2 billion own a toothbrush. Well, if this fact is to be believed, it very well shows us the amount and the importance of the people who are keeping their oral and periodontal health into the picture. If you go to the rural villages or in India, you can see this common picture. Oxen going around the Persian wheel to draw water out of the well to irrigate the farmland. The day these oxen stop going around this well, the field and the crops will go dry. Now, if you draw a parallel from this and stop the oral hygiene maintenance procedures, slowly the periodontal health will start to deteriorate and resulting in the periodontal disease. Periodontitis is a chronic disease. Almost 90 to 95% of the world population suffers from some sort of gingival or periodontal disease. Management of this chronic periodontitis is a challenge to the general dentist. We all know periodontal disease starts from the interdental region. When left untreated, the inflammation progresses slowly into the alveolar bone, resulting in the resorption. Negligence by the patient to seek treatment will slowly result in the loss of the alveolar bone, immobility of the teeth, and eventually loss of the tooth itself. When a patient comes to the clinic with grade 3 mobility, we simply extract the tooth without even bothering to consider to see what the adjacent tooth looks like, whether they are having any mobility, and we fail to diagnose the cause of it. The patients come and ask us to do scaling. We do the procedure, remove the stains, remove the calculus, and dispose the patient after taking the money without even diagnosing the disease. Rather, we should have a thoughtful insight into the disease the patient is suffering from and provide appropriate treatment for the same. We all know periodontitis is a multifactorial disease. Local factors, systemic factors, environmental factors, and genetics play an important role in the etiopathogenesis of periodontitis. The local factors, that is the bacterial plaque, is the most important etiological agent in the pathogenesis of periodontitis. Therefore, removal and control of microbial deposits is critical for the success of periodontal therapy. Our eyes will see only what our brain knows. So to make the clinical assessment and diagnosis a little easier in cases of periodontal disease, we can use disclosing agents. In picture 1, the plaque and calculus is very clearly visible in the lower anterior region, but only after the application of the disclosing agent, the extent of plaque is visible in the oral cavity in picture 2. We can use this disclosing agent as a tool during the treatment procedure as well as a motivational aid for the treatment of the periodontal disease. 90% of the clinicians in their dental practice do not possess a periodontal probe. When a periodontal probe is not available, probing a pocket is out of question and diagnosing a periodontal disease and its extent is totally missed, and the possible treatment that can be initiated and given to the patient is denied. Another important aid in the diagnosis of periodontal disease after the clinical examination is done is the radiograph. The radiographs, whether it is the intraoral periapical or OPG, which can be taken, will give the clear picture of the remaining amount of alveolar bone present around the tooth and the type of bone loss which is present around the tooth, which can be very, very evident on the radiograph. So what is the rationale for periodontal therapy? The rationale of periodontal therapy is based on elimination or suppression of infectious microorganisms, elimination or control of source of infection, establishing environment that promotes the resolution of inflammation, and consideration of host factors. So we have to plan the treatment first. We have to understand if the periodontal disease can be controlled or can be eliminated with just non-surgical therapy, or whether surgical therapy will have to be instituted after the non-surgical therapy has been done. Non-surgical therapy mainly is the scaling and root planing. Now this procedure in clinics is commonly carried out using the ultrasonic scalers. All the dentists do have ultrasonic scalers in their clinics where the patient comes and wants the scaling to be done. The scaling is done for the patient. And now we have subgingival tips also available with which the subgingival areas can be reached with the ultrasonic scaler, and deeper pockets can be reached using these tips. When ultrasonic scalers are used, aerosol is definitely produced. Yes, you are right. I just want you to understand the relationship between COVID-19 and the aerosol generation. But don't worry, there have been enough and more number of webinars and lectures which have been conducted to tell you about the aerosol, the COVID-19 infection, and all these things. But I will not speak to you more than 2 slides on this, because I know at this point of time you all are more knowledgeable than we are on this topic. But just to let you know, it has been observed and reported that when someone coughs or sneezes, the droplets or the aerosol from the patient or from the individual may reach a distance of over 6 meters. And when ultrasonic scaling is being done, the droplets or the aerosol can spread to over 20-meter distance. And this distance, there might be many objects and many surfaces on which the coronavirus present in the droplets can live from 4 hours to up to 72 hours. So the European Federation of Periodontology suggested for the management of dental clinics during the COVID-19 epidemic. First and foremost, they have initiated and told to avoid aerosol production, not to use ultrasonic scalers where the aerosols are being produced. But just in case if aerosol production is inevitable, it has to be tried to be limited. They have advised use of high power suctions which will absorb the aerosol right away from the patient's mouth area. Use of decontaminating sprays have also been advised by them, and also possibly using patient shields like the Arbet box, which have been invented, can also be used. Ventilation of the area where the work is being carried out is to be done very well. Avoiding the air conditioners is of prime importance. And environmental disinfection with sodium hypochlorite and hydrogen peroxide or alcohol has also been suggested with them. Now that ultrasonic scalers have been dissuaded by all the organizations or all the people to use during this COVID-19, what comes to our mind to give the periodontal treatment to the patient is use of the hand instruments. Yes, we all have used the hand instruments way back in our college times, and we have cried when we have used these instruments as to how many scalings we have to do with hand instruments. But now is the time when the importance of these instruments have to be understood. Hand instruments are the best alternative for your dental and periodontal treatment to be performed for the ultrasonics. These instruments, when purchased from a good company, are definitely a dentist or a surgeon's best assets in the clinic. Good instruments will also increase the perfection and also the efficiency. Sharpening of the instruments, keeping the instruments sharp, not having dull instruments are all a very, very important thing. So we all have used the area-specific Gracie curettes, which are coming from number 1 to 14 for different areas of the mouth, different teeth. All these instruments which we use have now again gained importance. Of course, from a periodontist point of view, when they are doing flap surgery, they are definitely using these instruments. But as a general practitioner, these are very hardly used or hardly seen in the dental clinic. But if you are not having Gracie curettes, which are area specific, probably you can go for the universal curettes, the Columbia series 2R and 2L, which can be used in different areas of the mouth. Just to drive home the point of using hand instrument and the result which you can get, you can see to the picture on the left side, which shows the amount of calculus which is present, which is making the gingiva recede, apical migration of the gingiva. You can see there is immense amount of calculus which is present, but with a good scaling and root planing using hand instruments, you can see the result which is evident on the right side. The amount of calculus which was there has been removed. The gingiva has come back to its original position. Yes, there is some amount of inflammation seen, but this is just a 1 week post-operative picture and the patient is maintaining good oral hygiene. Another picture, you can see the apical migration of the gingiva, the inflammation, the amount of calculus in the cervical region. But with good scaling and root planing, my dear friends, you can see here on the right side the beautiful contour which has been regained after the non-surgical periodontal therapy. Another picture, of course, there is bleeding here because after I started initiating the treatment, I thought the picture should be taken because of the amount of calculus and the gums and the gingival recession which you can see, which has reduced in the next picture which you are seeing. The recession has almost reduced, the gingival health has come back to normal, and the patient is maintaining good oral hygiene. So when does a person think that surgery is going to be done? Whenever there is a pocket which is more than 5 to 6 millimeter and is not resolving, a surgical procedure can be initiated. The rationale for surgical therapy, we all have read during our college days, is to provide visibility and accessibility of the root and underlying bone, restoration of the periodontal apparatus, and re-establishment of healthy clinical status and long-term maintenance by the patient and the dental team. So some surgical procedures, if you can see the simplest of them being the draining of abscess, you can see the abscess which is present in the vestibular area and the amount of calculus which is present after the scaling and root planing has been done and the abscess has been punctured with the BP blade from the most dependent area. You can see the healing which has taken place 1 week post-operative. Another case, the endoperio case, where you can see the entire periodontal probe going into the region, percussion region, the abscess present over there. The endodontic therapy has been initiated and then you can see that the area has been curated through the pocket wall to remove the abscess. And a 1 week follow-up, you can see the gingiva looking healthy and pink over there. So these are few simple procedures which can be done. I'm sorry for the quality of this picture, but this is a very interesting case just for you to drive home the point, the amount of result you can expect when doing a good scaling and root planing. This 24-year-old male patient with grade 3 mobile tooth, the central incisor on the left side, which you can see, came to the clinic and said that he wants to save the tooth. After seeing this tooth, we all decided and told the patient that this case, nothing can be done, the tooth has to be extracted. But he insisted on saving the tooth. So in spite of telling him the result, which is not going to be very good after the treatment is going to be initiated, he insisted on saving the tooth. So after his telling, at that time only a mobile camera was there in my hand. So I clicked the picture with this mobile camera. So the quality of the picture is not that good. You can see the amount of bone loss around the tooth. Probably the tooth is hanging there only with the soft tissue. The entire area up to the apex, the bone loss has taken place. So after telling him about the treatment to be done or the procedure of treatment to be done, we splinted the tooth with a ligature wire and then initiated a root canal treatment. After the root canal treatment was done, the entire area was only curated with your subgingival curates. There is no flap raising, there is no bone graft which is being placed here, only debridement of the area with the hand instrument. And after 6 months, you can see the result where the bone all around the tooth has regenerated. The patient was very happy when this radiograph was taken. The patient was also on good maintenance therapy. The patient was so happy that now he wanted a little more. So he asked us if we can go ahead and do this closure of space. After telling him that this is a very disastrous case to go ahead with, but he insisted. So we all decided and discussed with the orthodontist and found that some orthodontic treatment can be initiated for the patient. So the orthodontic treatment was initiated. I do not know how much or what type of orthodontic treatment is being done because I am not a specialist in the orthodontic field, but the orthodontist took good care not to have too much of force on the tooth where the bone loss will occur again and all those things. Care was taken, and you can see after about 1 year the closure of the space which was seen after the treatment has been done. And this is the picture after the completion of the treatment. So just with scaling and root planing and subgingival debridement, degranulation of the tissues over there, this is the result which has been achieved. Another radiograph I want to show, you can see the radiograph where the distal root of the mandibular molars, you can see the arrow which is present, the bone loss around the distal root of the mandibular molars. So the etiology was seen, the plunger cusps on the maxillary teeth were treated, and then the root canal therapy was initiated, and only debridement was done, closed debridement was done. There was no flap reflection, there is no grafting over here. The debridement was done, and you can see 6 months post-operative radiograph where the regeneration of bone has taken place. So these are the results which you can achieve by just doing a good instrumentation. You can achieve good result, good regeneration of bone with only the debridement is going to be good. So as a fresher who is just entering the practice, what type of periodontal therapy can he initiate? You can definitely go in for minor surgical procedures, do some localized flaps. I will show you some cases which you can clearly or very easily do in your clinic so that you can give treatment to the patient and in turn also have a good practice. This is a girl, 19-year-old girl who came with complaint of pain and swelling in the upper front tooth region. Now on probing, the palatal aspect of the lateral incisor showed the presence of an 8 mm pocket. So a preoperative radiograph was taken of the lateral incisor which showed bone loss all around the tooth up to the apex. So a root canal therapy was initiated for the patient, and this radiograph is taken 3 months post the root canal therapy. So once this was done, the surgical procedure was initiated for the patient. You can see on the palatal side, the clavicular incision starting from the central incisor to lateral canine has been placed up to the premolar region, and the flap has been raised on the palatal side. Now the difference in the picture 2 and picture 3 which you have to appreciate is the amount of calculus and the surface impurities which are present on the root surface in picture 2, which has been cleaned up properly in picture 3, so that the root surface is visible, yellowish in color, so that the attachment of the connective tissue can take over to the root surface, which is of very prime importance that the connective tissue attachment to the root surface takes place. This is a picture of the sutures being placed, and this is the picture taken 4 months post-operatively. After the patient's surgical therapy was done, patient complained of some mobility in the teeth, so wire splinting was done, which is evident on the radiograph, post-operative radiograph. So after 4 months of therapy, you can see when the radiograph has been taken, a good bone regeneration or is seen around the lateral incisor, which was pre-operatively all over the tooth, all around the tooth. The radiograph showed bone loss. 32-year-old male patient came and complained of pain and presence of swelling in the palate. On probing the palatal aspect, the lateral incisor showed the presence of a pocket that was more than 8 millimeter deep. There was also sinus tract opening on the buccal surface as well as the palatal surface. So the GP points were used to track the sinus and to see where the sinus tract is going to lead. Radiograph was taken with the 2 GP points in position. You can see very well the 2 GP points which are going towards the lateral incisor. So after this sinus tracking was done using the radiograph and the gutta percha points, the root canal therapy was initiated and a complete root canal was done for the patient. After that, the localized flap was raised. You can see from the central incisor to the premolar region, sulcular incision has been placed and the flap has been raised, and you can see the opening in the bone, which is showing the presence of the sinus, as well as on the palatal side, you can see the localized flap which has been raised and the entire bone loss which is seen, or rather no bone is present around the lateral incisor, which is quite evident in this picture. So after the debridement, the suturing was done, and the 2 pictures at the bottom shows the post-operative picture where the sutures have been removed 1 week after the surgical procedure, and the radiograph which was taken after 1 month of the therapy shows some haziness in the area where the sinus was there or where the bone loss has occurred, probably showing that there is some amount of osteogenic activity taking place and bone regeneration taking place. Another case for you to see where the bone grafting can be done. The patient came with the pocket, 6 millimeter pocket in the central incisor. You can see the probe going inside, and also in this tooth there was presence of the palatogingival groove which was extending onto the root surface. So radiograph was taken. You can see apical region there is some radiolucency, as well as on the lateral side you can see radiolucency, which is because of the presence of the palatoradicular groove. The root canal therapy was initiated for the patient, and this radiograph is taken after the completion of root canal 1 month post-operatively. Again, localized flap was raised. You can see the incisions being placed on the central incisors and the lateral incisor, and the flap has been reflected. And in the third picture, you can see the arrow has been placed where the palatogingival groove was present, and the odontoplasty was done, and a GIC restoration has been placed over there so that the anomaly or the root anomaly can be cleared in that place. Of course, we place some bone graft in this procedure, and the suturing has been done, and after suture removal you can see the healthy gingiva, and post-operative 6 months radiograph you can see the arrows depicting the entire bone which was radiolucent pre-operatively in the area has recovered, or there is some regeneration taking place. Aesthetics is a major concern for the patient for their beauty. The way they appear, the way their teeth appear, or the way their gums or gingiva appear is of very much concern to them. Usually the patient complains regarding the receding gum line, which makes their teeth look long, or their dark looking gums, which is not very appreciable to them or their friends when they smile. Now these conditions can be easily dealt with if we know the concept and we guide them clearly as to what has to be done and how it will be done. High frenal attachment is the major cause of the gingival recession in the lower anterior teeth. Similarly, majority of the cases where diastema is seen, which is caused by the high frenal attachment. Both these conditions warrant a frenectomy. Now, in this case, if you can see here, preoperative picture, you can see that there are two central incisors in the lower anterior region which are having recession, but at the same time, there is a high frenal attachment, the muscle pull which is present, which is causing this recession of the gingiva. Now, a good frenectomy, after it is being done without doing any root coverage procedure, if you see the post-operative picture, the recession has covered up, there is creeping attachment has taken place, and the recession which was visible pre-operatively has almost gone, and there is only negligible 1 mm of the root which is exposed, and this has been achieved only with doing the frenectomy procedure. Maxillary teeth where diastema is present, high frenal attachment, the papillary type of frenal attachment which is present. Once this frenal attachment has been removed by doing the frenectomy procedure, the orthodontic treatment can also be initiated where the diastema closure can take place. Usually, if these frenectomies are not done and the diastema closure using the orthodontic treatment is done, once the treatment is over, the teeth will come back to its own position as before because of the frenal pull which will be present. We all have read about the classification of recession when we were in college. P.D. Miller Jr.'s classification, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. The best possible way to treat these classifications, or rather recession, when the patient is suffering from class 1 or class 2 type of recession, you might be able to regain some amount of attachment. So the main indication for the root coverage is basically aesthetic. So after the resolution of inflammation, elimination of trauma, the clinician may decide whether the root coverage is required or not. So there is a good appropriate case selection is required. You have to see whether the sufficient blood supply is available to the donor site, whether the root surface covered with adequate donor tissue, whether there is donor tissue adequately present around the recipient site. All these things have to be clearly understood. Just one small case I would like to show you here, where there is a recession which is present in the central incisor in the lower anterior teeth. It's about a 5 mm recession which has been detected over there using the periodontal probe. And to start with, we had to see first whether there is good amount of attached gingiva in the surrounding teeth, that is the donor teeth is having an adequate amount of attached gingiva or not. And then we had to do the lateral pedicle graft so that we could cover the recession site. You can see here the incision has been placed and the donor tissue from that area has been shifted onto the recession area and the sutures have been placed. After the suture removal, 1 week, you can see the redness still present in the tissue over there because of inflammation. Healing tissue is there, and this is a 4-month post-operative picture which shows 100% root coverage in the recession area. Now, this was only possible because the case selection was good. The amount of tissue which was there in the donor tissue was adequate. All these things had to be taken into consideration before we attempt to do this kind of procedure. The other thing, aesthetics, which I told to you was about the pigmented gingiva. Many times youngsters, they come over and say that their gums, their gingiva look brown in color. They want to get rid of these things. It is possible to do that. There are different procedures which are available or which can be done by the dentist in their clinic to do this procedure. The easiest of them being taking a BP blade and scraping the gingiva off. There are other techniques also like the partial thickness flap or using the electrocautery, using the tungsten carbide burr rotary instrument which can be used. But while using the rotary instrument, the tactile sensation is very important. You might end up removing more than required and the bone getting exposed. So to have good control, it is always advisable that you use the BP blade to scrape off the tissue or scrape off the gingiva which is pigmented in color. Like you can see in the first picture, the BP blade has been used to scrape off, but still you can see some amount of the brownish blackish tissue which is on the apical area which is remaining. which needs to be removed. Now, this picture which you are seeing on the right side is totally done using the scraping method, where you have removed the pigmented gingiva using the GP blade. Another case, I am showing you the entire mouth. The patient came with the gingival pigmentation and insisted on getting the depigmentation done, because sooner, in about 3 months time, he was going to get married. So we told him about the type of procedures which are available, and he accepted to go in with laser, diode laser, another mode of technique where you can do the depigmentation. So 810 nanometer diode was used to remove the pigmentation for him. In the continuous contact mode, we used the sweeping motion to remove the pigmentation. You can see in the picture down, after the depigmentation procedure has been done, the gingiva, which is devoid of the pigmented tissue, which you can see here. So this is the post-operative, 2 months post-operative. There is about the distal, or rather the posterior area, the pigmentation is still present. You can see in the molar area, there is still some pigmented gingiva remaining, but probably when he is smiling, it is not visible. So we thought of not continuing in that area. But one thing you have to make very clear to the patient. You have to inform the patient about the recurrence of this pigmentation. The gingival pigmentation recurrence may occur anytime from about 6 months to 2 years. Lot of research work has been done which says that pigmentation reoccurs from 6 months to up to 2 years. A patient came to the clinic where he wanted to get the crowns fixed for his maxillary teeth. You can see the extent of crown work which has to be done for the patient, right from the molar on the left side to about premolar in the right side. But when the temporary for this patient was prepared and fitted, you can see that there is some gap which is present between the teeth and the gingiva. Now this gap which is present was the cause of air spilling away from his mouth while he was speaking, causing pronunciation problem as well as aesthetic problem. Of course, there is an aesthetic problem, but also there was accumulation of food which was taking place. So simple procedure was done for this patient. We removed this temporary crown for him, and the area where the edentulous place was there, de-epithelialization of the area was done, and incision was placed, and the flap was reflected, rolled over, and then sutured, and the crown, the temporary crown, was placed in the healing period. Now, while placing this temporary crown in the healing period, these indentations of the temporary crown will be formed on the gingiva over there, and when the final restoration is going to be done, the tooth will look like emerging out of the gingiva, which will give a good contour for the patient. Moving a little further from treating periodontal disease that are caused purely because of plaque to periodontal disease that is related to systemic health. I would first like to show you a short video of about 1 to 1.5 minutes that has been made and promoted by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and after that I will tell you about the further things.
गुड़गुड़म बुड़बुड़म बुलबुलों का जादू हम चलो।
अरे अरे कहाँ चली डॉक्टर मुन्नी की टोली?
गुड़गुड़म बुड़बुड़म बुलबुलों का जादू हम आ ई देखे देखे लत्ती बड़ा आ बोलो जल्दी से मुंह खोलो। देखा गुड़गुड़म बुड़बुड़म बुलबुलों का जादू हम आ ई देखे देखे लत्ती बड़ा आ बोलो। अरे बोलो ना, जल्दी से मुंह खोलो। गुड़गुड़म बुड़बुड़म बुलबुलों का जादू हम आ ई देखे देखे लत्ती बड़ा आ बोलो जल्दी से मुंह खोलो।
अरे ये क्या कर रहे हो?
डॉक्टर मुन्नी सही तो है, हमारा मुंह है हमारी सेहत का आईना। मुंह को स्वस्थ रखने से दांत और मसूड़ों के साथ पूरा शरीर स्वस्थ रहता है। मुंह में पायरियां होने से कमजोर नवजात शिशु, मधुमेह, दिल की बीमारी और मस्तिष्क आघात होने की संभावना बढ़ जाती है। मुंह का स्वास्थ्य बनाए रखने के लिए दिन में 2 बार ब्रश करें और खाने के बाद कुल्ला।
अगर दांत में दर्द हो या कोई भी तकलीफ हो तो तुरंत दांतों के डॉक्टर से मिलें,
क्योंकि स्वस्थ मुंह है सेहत का आधार,
समझे?
Thank you. I think most of you must have seen this video which has been playing on the TV, the Doordarshan and all these things. So first of all, we have to thank the Health Ministry for having come forward and taken an initiative to get this video released for the oral health under the National Oral Health Mission. So the basic idea of showing this video to you was, in the video you saw that the doctor lady who was there is clearly telling to the people in the rural areas that oral health is related to so many of the dental problems, or rather the dental and oral health, rather the oral and systemic health are going hand in hand. The research has linked so many of the systemic diseases to the periodontal disease. They have linked the preterm low birth weight, the diabetes, heart and kidney disease, Alzheimer's, asthma, osteoporosis, cancer, and the list goes on and on. But I will be discussing only about 2 or 3 of these diseases over here with some clinical pictures so that it becomes easier for the practicing dentist to have an insight into all these things and to collaborate with the general practitioner, the medical practitioner, so that a good setup can be made where at the end, the patient is the one who is going to get benefited. Now, research has proved that women who suffer from periodontal disease and conceive have delivered babies before the completion of the gestational age. The gestational age is considered at least for 37 weeks, and anything or any pregnancy which results in delivery before 37 weeks is termed as preterm birth. And when these women who deliver preterm babies, it has also been seen that the infants are weighing less than 2,500 grams. Now this less than 2,500 grams of the baby's body weight is considered as low birth weight. So preterm low birth weight has been directly related to the periodontal problem the woman might be having during pregnancy. So dental practitioner in their area should go and meet the practicing gynecologist and make them understand and request them to at least send the patient or send the pregnant lady during their pregnancy or before they think of conceiving for a checkup, for a dental checkup, so that they can be told about the problems which might occur with the baby which is going to be born. So a good interrelationship between the dentist and the medical fraternity will definitely go a long way in preventing preterm low birth weight babies. India is the diabetic capital of the world. The American Diabetic Association has stated clearly that periodontal disease is the 6th complication of diabetes. It has been proved beyond doubt that the two-way relationship between diabetes and periodontal disease exists. The treatment of periodontal disease has shown to regulate the diabetic status or the glycemic status of the patient, and it has seen that when periodontal pockets and periodontal disease is treated, the blood sugar level comes into control. Again, it is on the dentist to go and meet the practicing physician or the endocrinologist in the area and make them understand about the relationship between these two diseases. All this is being done only for improving the health of the patient. And once the health of the patient is improved, definitely from practice point of view, that patient is going to refer in more patients to the dentist, which will definitely turn to be a very beneficial thing. Many times the patient comes to the dentist with multiple abscesses in their mouth. They have mobile teeth, they have some polyps in their gingiva. There are a lot of proliferations which are present. And the dentist, while doing the examination, while seeing the clinical picture and taking some amount of history, taking the history whether as there is increased thirst in the patient, increased amount of the hunger has increased. All this gives rise to the patient being suffering from the diabetic situation. So many times the dentist refer the patient for a blood test to find out if the patient is suffering from diabetes. And it comes true that the patient suffers from diabetes, and they come and report back to the dentist when he or she refers him to the physician for the treatment of the diabetic problem. So it is very important to understand the link between the dentist and the general physician so that the health of the general population increases. 15-year-old girl who came to the clinic with reddish gingiva in the lower anterior region and stated that the gingiva is getting detached from the tooth surface. So when the picture was taken and seen, you can see in the picture the gingiva getting detached from the tooth surface and lot of calculus which is accumulated. The lingual side showing total detachment of the gingiva from the root surface, the exposure of the root surface. The patient also complained that she is having evening rise of temperature which goes up to 101, 102. The lymph nodes, the axial lymph nodes on the right side were palpable. All these history the patient gave. So a radiograph was taken, but there was nothing much seen, but only the lower anterior region where you can see the bone loss which is present. So this patient, after evaluating the physical condition, there was body loss, weight of body loss more than 10%. So all these conditions were thought of and evaluated, and then a differential diagnosis was made that the patient might be suffering from tuberculosis. The patient was sent for a test. The Montauk's test was done for the patient, but unfortunately the patient report came to be negative. So after the report came negative, phase 1 therapy was instituted for the patient. The anterior, lower anterior teeth were mobile, so splinting was done so that the mobility could be arrested over there. But there was no much improvement in the gingival status of the patient. Still the detachment of the tissue was being seen. So you can see the picture 1 month post-operative where the gingiva still is, though it is better than before, but still there is some amount of detachment which is seen. At this point of time, it was thought again that another Montauk's test should be conducted for the patient, and the patient was again sent for a Montauk's test, and this time the patient came positive for the Montauk's test. So the first test which was done gave a false negative report, and the second one came as a positive report, and the patient was sent to the physician for the anti-tubercular therapy. The patient, after the anti-tubercular therapy was began for the patient started improving, and the gingival condition also started improving. You can see in the picture on the left side, the detached gingiva is gone totally. Of course, there is the recession of the gingiva which is seen, the tooth is exposed, but the detached part of the tissue which was there is gone, and the lingual side also you can see there is lot of improvement on the lingual side, where the roughness which was seen on the lingual surface has gone completely. So, and complete knowledge, the medical knowledge also is very important as when you are going to diagnose periodontal problems, because these kind of cases, any kind of cases will come to the clinic, and it becomes important to have a good knowledge, medical knowledge, sound medical knowledge, so that you can correlate these things and give proper treatment for the patient. This patient was referred from an endodontist who did the endo treatment in the canine and the lateral incisor, but at that time saw that there is exposure of bone which is present on the lingual surface of the premolar. So the patient came to us to show this exposure of bone, and then the history was taken of the patient. The patient was suffering from tuberculosis. Right now the patient was cured of tuberculosis, but a year ago the treatment had completed the anti-tubercular therapy. The radiograph was taken, and you can see in the radiograph there is clear demarcation of the marginal bone over there. The sequestrum which is formed, you can see, which is a dead bone basically. So a surgical procedure was initiated for the patient to remove that dead bone out. You can see the incision has been placed to remove the bone, and you can see the sequestrum over there which is not connected with the healthy bone which is at the lower area, and the bone was removed out so that healing can take place in that area and the patient can maintain the area of plaque control. So of course this is a 6-month post-operative picture which shows the bone, the sequestrum which has been removed from the area, and there is slight migration of the teeth which is present, which can be seen in this picture. Whatever type of treatment we do, unless and until the maintenance therapy is not instilled, periodontal treatment will not be successful. A good supportive therapy should be instituted for the patient in the form of periodic recall for oral prophylaxis. If there is need, if there are shallow pockets present, the patient should be instructed to perform subgingival irrigations. At home, these procedures can be done. But in case there are localized deep pockets present, instead of doing surgical therapy, we can also go in for local drug delivery therapy, where tetracycline fibers can be inserted in the pocket and evaluated over a period of time to see that the pocket resolution takes place. And regularly the patient should be recalled to analyze and evaluate the periodontal health status. There are many times when the systemic condition of the patient is beyond our control, to let us achieve the goal of healthy periodontium in function and aesthetics. In a country like India, where the socio-economic status and time is a very big constraint for the patient, they are not able to invest that much of money and time to achieve the ultimate goal. But it is definitely our duty to inform the patients of the periodontal problem they are suffering from, and they should be made aware of this, so that maybe they can think of some ways and means of getting treatment for these problems that they are suffering from. Sometimes when some treatment is beyond the scope of us in the dental clinics, it is not at all a sin to call in the periodontist to give treatment to the patient and give good health to the patient and good life to the patient. So with these words, I conclude my presentation, and Anandita madam.
That was a comprehensive presentation, sir. You have covered almost all the major aspects of periodontology. Kudos and congratulations.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
It's time for our question answer session. The participation today was close to 12,000. So you can understand the number of questions that we have received.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hundreds of questions. Many of them have dealt with COVID and how to work in the situation. So I think most of their answers they have already got what they wanted to know. They've got their answers.
We purposely didn't want to speak on COVID today because we have been.
Wanted to know about ultrasonic scaling and whether hand instruments should be used, and hand instruments take a longer time. So the questions related to all these, which you have already covered.
Time taken is is better than getting infected, I think.
That's what. And there have been questions, lot of questions regarding the timing of endodontic therapy, because you have shown so many cases where you have done endo and perio. Okay. So many people have asked, what is the sequence of endodontic treatment and periodontic treatment? Which one has to be done first, and whether we should give some gap in between? Many questions related to this. Would you like to?
Yes, ma'am.
If
we read the textbooks and see the classification, the Simon's classification, which is the most commonly applied classification for endoperio lesions, which says primary endodontic lesion, primary endo with secondary perio, primary perio with secondary endo, and the combined lesions. The textbook definitely say if it is a primary endo lesion, you go with the endo treatment first, but if it is a primary perio lesion, you go with the primary perio treatment first. But over the years, this is my personal experience. I may not be quoted anywhere, but with my personal experience, what I have seen, ma'am, whether it is a primary perio lesion or a primary endo lesion with secondary thing, whenever we are doing the endodontic treatment first, the results of the periodontal treatment is seen to be much better. There might be many reasons for this, but the endo treatment, if it is done first, gives a better prognosis for the periodontal treatment. This is my personal opinion.
And there have been questions regarding how long to defer the periodontal treatment after an endodontic treatment has been
After
done.
endodontic treatment is done, usually what happens, you wait for the period of time where the bone healing takes place. The resolution of the infection around the tissue takes place. More or less, it will take around 2 to 3 months for the resolution to take place. So ideally, you should wait that much period before the periodontal treatment or the surgical treatment has to be initiated. That is my take on that, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Now we have got a number of questions on motivation of patients. So
Okay.
there are two groups of questions regarding this. Some of the questions are how to motivate patients to go for periodontal treatment, because many patients are they are unwilling to go for any other kind of periodontal therapy other than scaling. Some are saying that most of the patients' complaints are resolved after scaling. So how to motivate those patients? And there is another set of questions on motivation, that how do we motivate our undergraduates to do periodontal treatment and to diagnose periodontal problems, how to go for that. So
Okay.
these two different aspects on motivation.
Right. Motivation of the patients in clinics is of very big importance. As you have already stated, after the scaling is performed, most of the problem is resolved. That is what the patient sees, that the problem is resolved. But as you all know, phase 1 therapy which is there is the etiotrophic phase, where you are going to remove the etiology of the disease. But etiology has been removed, but after that the corrective procedure has to be done for that. So I told you in the presentation also, the socio-economic status as well as the educational status in the country plays a very big role. Unfortunately, the first two slides, if you saw, I told you about periodontics not being a popular subject in the country. But if you go to the European countries or to America, probably because of the higher educational status, the patients are more than willing to come back to the dentist to get their maintenance therapy done. So that part of the therapy which actually is required is not seen in our country. So definitely it's a difficult situation where you have to motivate the patient, but definitely if the patient is educated, you can motivate the patient to come in every 3 months, every 6 months for the review recall to be done. As far as motivating the undergraduates is concerned regarding making diagnosis and all these things, who better can motivate these students than the faculty who are sitting in the department, who have to be beside the student at chair side, so that they can guide the student as to how the probe is to be used, how the instrument is to be used, how to probe the pocket, how to check for mobility, how to check the attachment loss, how to check the high frenal attachment. These things will happen only when the teacher is standing beside the student.
Right, sir. So we have a number of questions on probiotics.
Yes,
what is the role of probiotics in periodontology in situations, and why are we supposed to use probiotics?
Probiotics have gained good popularity and importance in every field of things. If you see, even when a person is taking some antibiotic, there is probiotics being prescribed. There are a lot of probiotics, the curd which is available with probiotics. Basically, the probiotics which are used most commonly, lactobacillus and all these things which are being used, they are being used because they will compete with the microorganism, the disease producing microorganism, to have competition in adhesion. So once they come first and adhere onto the surface, there is no chance of the microorganism to come and adhere onto the whichever surface, maybe the connective tissue surface or in any other area. So the competition between the probiotic and the disease-producing microorganism is uh, 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 taken over by the probiotic microorganism, where it prevents the adhesion. So basically, it's like a race. I will go first and reach the end point. So if I reach the end point, definitely the person who is behind me is not going to win the race. So a lot of research is already done, is going on in the field of probiotics and periodontal disease. Well, it's a 50-50 thing, ma'am. I personally do not have prescribed probiotics to the patient, but a lot of studies do say benefits with the probiotics.
Okay, sir. Now we have multiple questions on presence of the COVID virus in the gingival clavicular fluid.
Oh,
Regarding whether it is present or not, and if it is present, what should we do to protect ourselves and our patients? Like patients already infected.
COVID-19 virus. I have read articles on COVID-19 virus being present in the saliva. There is no article as yet published on COVID-19 virus being located in the gingival clavicular fluid. I'm sure it will come soon. But as of now, there is no literature which says isolation of COVID-19 virus in the gingival clavicular fluid. Probably some study will have to be done. But for that study to be done, you have to, collect the GCF sample, and collection of GCF sample is a procedure where the infected person is going to sit very close to you. So probably after the vaccine comes, the person who is going to collect the vaccine will be vaccinated before collecting the GCF, and collect the GCF and see whether there is presence of COVID-19 virus in the gingival clavicular fluid.
Yes, sir. Then regarding one particular case which you showed on a lateral incisor, many of the questions are dealing with, I hope there was no palatoradicular groove on the lateral incisor. Many such...
No, wherever there was palatoradicular groove, I have clearly stated that. In one case where there was palatoradicular groove, I have stated clearly that palatoradicular groove was there, odontoplasty was done, and restoration also was done. I have clearly stated that.
Okay, sir. Another youngster has asked, how do we avoid accidental exfoliation of grade 3 mobile teeth during periodontal procedures?
Accidental exfoliation. First of all, whenever the patient is coming, the complete clinical evaluation is very important. So the clinical evaluation should be followed up with the radiographic evaluation also. So if you remember that case I showed where the tooth was just hanging with, I think, only the soft tissue. So it becomes very important to inform the patient before you are starting the oral prophylaxis that, look, this tooth is definitely going to come off during the treatment procedure. So the patient has to be made aware of it, and probably before you start the treatment procedure, the consent form which we are taking, clearly in your record details you should mention that this tooth is grade 3 mobile, may be exfoliated during the treatment, oral prophylaxis treatment. Take the patient's signature so that you do not have any problems later on after the treatment is being completed. So all documentation should be completed before the treatment begins. Nothing can be done after the treatment is there, after the treatment and the accidental exfoliation has taken place and the patient is shouting over there. So when in doubt, put it down in pen and paper and take the patient's signature. That is the most important thing to do in this era.
Sir, and we have numerous questions on bone graft. Which bone graft material have you used and why? And would you like to shed some light on this?
Ma'am, the best bone graft to be used is the autograft, but the biggest disadvantage for autograft is you need a second surgical site from where you will have to harvest it from the patient's own body. So to counter this, instead of the autograft, you can definitely go in with allograft, or even xenograft, which is available, can be used very easily for the bone regeneration purposes. But alloplast, which you are going to use, if at all, is going to only be there as a filler material. It is not going to induce or form bone in the place. It will just remain there as a filler material. So the best choice would be autograft followed by allograft and xenograft.
Okay, sir. So there are still lots of questions which are unanswered, but I think we are running out of time. So I would request those whose questions have not been answered, please refer to sir's email ID on the registration slide, and I think sir would be happy to answer all of them through his email. Now, an important announcement regarding the participation in the last webinar. So already I have announced that, but to repeat it, in the last webinar, we had the top 5 dental colleges in terms of participation of students and faculties. They were number 1, Sardar Patel Postgraduate Institute of Dental and Medical Sciences, Lucknow. Then we had Manipal College of Dental Sciences, Bangalore. RVS Dental College, Coimbatore. Guru Nanak Institute of Dental Sciences and Research, Kolkata. Shri Ramachandra Dental College and Hospital, Chennai. We do hope that this participation will go a long way in the education of all involved, and hope for greater participation from all other colleges in the weeks to come. We are on the verge of completing today's webinar. My sincerest gratitude to President Sir, Secretary Dr. Shah Sir, GCI members, Dr. Goyal Sir, the back office and the technical team. Requesting all the participants to kindly spend a minute to fill up the feedback form to enable us to improve ourselves in the weeks to come. It will appear on the screen immediately after this is concluded. The next webinar will be on band occlusion and its consequences. It will be presented by Dr. N.R. Krishnaswamy, Vice Principal, Professor and Head, Department of Orthodontics and Dentofacial Orthopedics, Ragas Dental College and Hospitals, Chennai. And the session will be moderated by Professor Dr. M.C. Sainath, Principal, Professor and Head, Department of Orthodontics and Dentofacial Orthopedics, Madha Dental College and Hospital, Chennai. Thank you all once again. Thank you, Balaji sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
May I bring the curtains down today?
I
Thank
take
you
this
all.
opportunity to thank you.
Namaskar and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.